This is the Google Pixel 4a and it's the only Pixel phone that's gonna be sold in India this year. So we're not gonna get the Pixel 4a 5G and also the Pixel 5, but actually this phone, which is the Pixel 4a, is a great one which is priced pretty correctly. And I'm gonna say it straight, which is I love this phone in its segment. And that segment is in the 30,000 range because the Pixel 4a, even though in box is marked for 31,999 Indian rupees, at present in Flipkart India, which is by the way the only place from where you can buy this phone, is sold for 29,999 rupees. And since there's only one variant and one color for this phone, that's the only price tag to keep in mind. Now the main attraction about this phone is the core user experience that it offers. It's not a spec sheet phone, but it's a phone that's well put together which you'll surely like. And it all starts with the form factor. This is a perfectly sized phone. Nowadays it's hard to find a phone which is comfortable to use with one hand, and yeah, even though this Pixel 4a will require stretch for the corners, I love the compact nature of this phone. But then one thing to note is that you're not going to find any premium materials here. The casing is plastic which has this matte texture, and when you hold the phone, it's an instant thought that this is a polycarbonate body. But to be frank, Google did put this phone pretty well. There wasn't any gap or seam or even any flex, and the phone felt to be sturdy, and also these buttons are very clicky. And yet this power button is the only contrasting thing for this matte black scheme. Because just take a look at the rear section of the phone. It's almost like a minimal design. You get the Google branding, then there is a fingerprint scanner, which is a great one in terms of accuracy and unlocking speed, and also it is at a natural position. But one thing to note is that the scan is very flush with the body of the phone, and hence initially I did have some issues to properly get the mark, but right now I've got used to it. And then the last thing here is the camera module. The square section houses the single camera and also the flash, and this section does protrude out a bit, but since there isn't any scratches right now, I think it will hold fine. And about the front display glass, well, it's Gorilla Glass 3, which might seem inferior, but right now it's holding fine like the rest of the phone. And lastly about the ports, well, you get a headphone jack, which is an excellent thing, and also the charging port is USB-C. So overall, I like this design. Getting a glass back and a metal frame is gonna add a premium touch, but here this plastic body doesn't feel cheap even though the phone is very lightweight. Now when the phone is compact, if the display bezels are not managed properly, then things would have been bad, but here Google opted to go with a hole punch camera and very slim bezels all around, and therefore what we get is a 5.8-inch display. It's a Full HD Plus OLED display with pretty great pixel density, and yet this display is a pretty sharp and punchy one with not so bad viewing angles, and also the max brightness that the display can peak at is good. And because of that, the outdoor usability is more than fine, and right now from the display I've got, there isn't any green tint effect or rainbow effect. But yeah, one thing to note is that you're not getting any higher refresh rate stuff, but instead it's the classic 60Hz, and to be frank, if you're not accustomed to a 90Hz or above panel, you won't be complaining. Because scrolls and swipes are smooth here, and it's all thanks to Google's great optimization. At present, the Android version of this phone is Android 11, and with the Pixel 4a, Google is guaranteeing 3 major software updates. Well, this phone was launched with Android 10, so you're gonna surely get updates till Android 13, and that's a great thing because getting proper 3 years of software update is gonna keep this phone secure in the long run. And here, let's focus on that optimization thing, because the reason I said Google has done a great job in optimization is because the hardware of this phone is not flagship stuff. The processor used here is the Snapdragon 730G, which is a mid-range octa-core processor, and the RAM available is 6GB along with 128GB non-expandable storage. So usually this means things shouldn't be very smooth, but like I mentioned, software does play a big role, and here to my surprise, the experience was pretty good. Regular browsing or messaging or casual home screen digging, everything is lag-free, and while doing such stuff, you're not gonna miss your flagship phone. And I think the regular stuff that majority are gonna do with their phones works flawlessly in the Pixel 4a. But that said, the processor does show its low capabilities when you do intense video editing or when you try to load a very heavy game. They do work fine, but then you can see the time delay. But here while gaming, everything runs well with minor frame drops, and to my surprise, the phone didn't get that warm too, so that's a plus point. And here the 6GB RAM does keep moderately heavy 8 apps open in memory and up to 10 apps if it's the light ones. And about the storage, well for me 128GB is more than enough, so the non-expandable part was not at all an issue. And like this, another area that was not an issue for me is the battery backup. The battery capacity is 3140 mAh, and for my usage, the screen on time I was getting was approximately in the 5.5 to 6 hours range. And I'll rate this battery a good one for a day's use with heavy usage, and even if it's average use, you might need to charge every day because the standby time is a bit of a problem. The phone does drop battery at a quicker pace even in standby, and that might be because I did leave the always on display turned on. And here you also get an 18-watt fast charger with the phone, and with it the battery could be charged to 100% from zero in approximately 1 hour 30 minutes. So all the stuff we checked till now, let it be the good ones or the bad ones, when you get a Google phone, they're kind of secondary because the main or the primary focus with Pixel devices is the camera. And here also the story is almost the same. On the rear there is a 12.2 megapixel f1.7 aperture optically and electronically stabilized camera, and here this camera hardware is not very impressive, but Google's image processing like always is excellent. This is a true point and shoot camera. Let it be any lighting situation, this camera can capture excellent photos. In ideal conditions, the shots are sharp and a bit saturated with impressive dynamic range and also literally no noise. And this is a camera that I'll surely pick for just taking photos. Now I did miss the ultra wide angle camera, which would have been a great addition if Google gave us one, but about a telephoto camera, its omission has not at all been an issue for me. And here even portrait photos with any subject is possible, but then the photos were zoomed in. And about the front camera, well, it's a 8 megapixel f2.0 camera and it's also a good one for selfies. Here also let it be outdoor or indoor shots, they were nice and also the field of view is wide enough. So with photos, I am impressed, and this phone is the best you can get not only in this segment but even in the 40,000 range. There is no competition for this phone. But when it comes to videos, it's good, but it's not the best. The max video resolution supported by the main camera is 4K at 30 fps, and here I did record a 1080p video at 60 fps, and it does look sharp with not much focusing issue, and even the stabilization has been butter smooth. Tough conditions were handled neatly, and like I said, this camera is a good one for videos in this segment. And actually same is applicable while recording videos with the front camera. But one thing to note with the front camera video is that its max resolution supported is 1080p at 30 fps. So now that the camera thing is done, you might be wondering about the speakers, and the Pixel 4a does have stereo speakers and the output from it is good. Now the loudness level is pretty high, but the quality of sound, especially at 100% volume, was not that great. There was a bit of quality degradation and I did prefer one block down from max volume. But still for this price, I have no complaints, and actually since the display is big enough, watching content with the Pixel 4a is more than enjoyable. And if in case you have any normal headphones lying around, you can utilize it because of the headphone jack available in the phone. And also about the earpiece, it does work well for calls and the form factor is like a perfect one, so the overall call experience has been good. Then if you're wondering about the number of SIMs you can use, well, it's 2. But in that, only one is the normal nano SIM and the other is eSIM. And also about the range and coverage, it has been pretty good. I didn't face any call drop issues, so that's something to note. But yeah, one thing I wish Google could have done is to offer some kind of IP rating. But then for this price, it might be a stretch. And also if you're that person who uses wireless chargers, well, wireless charging is not present. Then some of the last stuff to note is that the Bluetooth version is 5 and the Wi-Fi version is not Wi-Fi 6, but you get NFC and all the needed sensors are present. And also the vibration system in this phone is a good one, and if in case you're wondering whether this is a 5G supported phone, well, it's not. So that's everything about the Google Pixel 4a. This is a phone that has been done right with most of the stuff, and Google did price it in a very competitive manner. And right now, for me, this is the best one in this segment. If your budget is 30,000 and you're looking to buy a great phone which works well for all the regular stuff, and it should have a solid camera, good battery life, and the best form factor, and even then you should get an immersive media experience with the phone, well then the Pixel 4a is the one to go for. And it's like the title, I'm gonna call the Pixel 4a the segment king. There is no fancy 6 camera hype or flashy colors or some gimmicks with this phone, but what you get is plain simple, yet very impressive. That's all for this video guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, a like is much appreciated and a sub will be great. See you again in the next one. Till then, bye.